The abandoned subway tunnel smelled like rust and decades of forgotten dreams. Jake checked his watch to 47 a.m. They'd been tracking Kale and Vera for 18 hours, following energy signatures and intercepted communications through half. The city, they're close, Zara whispered, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. I can feel their presence. Jake adjusted his tactical vest. The same one Zara had touched weeks ago, the one that had started everything. It felt different. Now, not like a reminder of his past, but like armor for his future. Remember the plan, he said quietly into his radio. We tried to talk first. No one shoots unless they shoot first. Agent Rodriguez's voice crackled back. Copy that. Teams are in position. They moved deeper into the tunnel, following the faint glow of alien technology. Jake's military training kicked in automatically. Watch the corners. Listen for movement. Stay aware of exit routes. But this wasn't like any mission he'd ever been on. They found Kale and Vera in what used to be a subway platform, surrounded by devices that hummed with otherworldly energy. Both aliens were in their true forms, tall, pale, with silver eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. They looked up as Jake and Zara approached. Zara, Kale said, his voice carrying that same echo Jake had heard in Zara's speech. You're too late. Too late for what? Zara asked. To stop the inevitable, Vera replied. We've already sent our report to the High Council. Humans are preparing for war. The evidence is overwhelming. What evidence? Jake stepped forward, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. The human warrior speaks, Kale said with contempt. How fitting. Your species' answer to everything, violence. I'm not here to fight, Jake said. I'm here to prevent one. By bringing human soldiers to threaten us, Vera gestured to the tunnel entrances where government agents were positioned. By showing you that humans can choose cooperation over conflict, Zara said. Jake, show them. Jake slowly removed his tactical vest and set it on the ground between them. This gear has been with me through 3 tours of duty. It's saved my life more times than I can count. But you know what? I'm putting it down. Because sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is choose not to fight, a meaningless gesture. Kale sneered. Is it? Zara stepped forward and placed her hand on Jake's vest. Touch it. Feel what he felt. Experience what it means to be a human warrior. We don't need to. You're afraid, Jake said quietly. You're afraid to learn the truth about us because it might challenge everything you believe. Kale's eyes flashed with anger, but Vera moved closer to the vest. What truth? That we're not that different. Jake said. That we fight for the same reasons you do. To protect the people we care about. Vera reached out and touched the vest. The moment her fingers made contact, she gasped and stumbled backward. Jake saw her eyes go wide with shock as she experienced his memories, the fear, the responsibility, the crushing weight of making life-and-death decisions. I felt, she whispered. I felt your pain, your guilt. You didn't want to fight. None of us do, Jake said. But sometimes we have to protect innocent people. Show me more. Vera said, reaching out again. This time, Jake took off his dog tags and placed them in her hand. These belong to my friend Tony. He died saving civilians during an earthquake in Haiti. He wasn't fighting an enemy. He was fighting time, trying to dig people out of collapsed buildings. Vera's eyes filled with tears as she experienced the memory. He died protecting strangers. That's what human warriors do. We protect people, even when it costs us everything. Kale watched his companion with growing alarm. Vera, don't let their emotions cloud your judgment. My judgment, Vera turned to him, her voice shaking. Our judgment was already clouded. We came here expecting to find monsters. But we found people, flawed, frightened people who do their best to protect each other. They're manipulating you. No, Zara said firmly. They're showing us who they really are. Just like Jake showed me. Jake picked up his radio. Agent Rodriguez, are you getting this? Every word. The energy readings from their devices are changing. Whatever they were planning, it's stopping. Vera looked at the alien devices around the platform. I need to send a new report to the High Council. The true report. Vera, no, Kale said, raising what looked like a weapon. Our orders were clear. Our orders were to assess the threat level of human civilization. I'm doing exactly that. By betraying our mission, by completing it honestly, Jake stepped between them. Kale, you don't have to do this. There's another way. You don't understand, Kale said, his weapon still raised. If we report that humans are not a threat, the High Council will authorize full contact. Your species will gain access to technology that could make you even more dangerous. Or it could help us solve problems we can't solve alone, Jake said. Climate change, disease, poverty, hunger. What if instead of being afraid of what we might do with your technology, you helped us use it responsibly? Impossible. Your species is too young. Too reckless. Then teach us, Jake said. Don't abandon us or destroy us. Help us grow. Kale hesitated, his weapon wavering. You would accept guidance from an alien species? I'd accept help from anyone who genuinely wanted to make the world better. Vera had been working on one of the devices while they talked. It's done, she said. I've sent the revised report to the High Council. I told them that humans are complex, that their capacity for violence is matched by their capacity for compassion, and that they deserve a chance to prove themselves. What happens now? Jake asked. Now we wait. Zara said. The High Council will debate our reports. They'll make a decision about whether to make contact, withdraw, or what, or intervene more directly. 3 days later, Jake was back in his apartment, but nothing was the same. Government agents had been replaced by scientists and diplomats. The living room that had once been just him, and Zara now hosted meetings between human officials and alien representatives. The High Council has agreed to a trial period. Dr. Chen announced to the assembled group 6 months of limited contact, with specific humans serving as liaisons. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means you and Zara will be working together officially. You'll help establish protocols for further contact, help both species understand each other, and serve as examples of what human-alien cooperation can look like. Jake looked at Zara, who smiled back at him. So we're keeping our day jobs in a way. Though I think your job description just got a lot more interesting. Later that evening, after all the officials had left, Jake and Zara sat on their couch, watching the news coverage of the first official acknowledgement of alien life. The president was addressing the nation, talking about hope and cooperation and the dawn of a new era. Are you okay with all this? Zara asked. Honestly, it's terrifying. But it's also the most important thing I've ever done. Jake picked up his tactical vest from where it sat on the coffee table. Funny how this old thing became the key to everything, not the vest. Zara said, taking his hand, your willingness to trust, to protect, to choose hope over fear. That's what made the difference. We made the difference together. Together, she agreed. 6 months later, Jake was wearing a new uniform. Not military, but something that marked him as a member of the first Human-Alien Cooperation Initiative. He and Zara were training a new group of liaisons, people from both species who would help manage the growing relationship between their worlds. Remember, Jake told the mixed group of humans and aliens the goal isn't to eliminate all conflict. It's to make sure that when conflicts arise, we solve them through understanding, instead of violence. One of the human trainees raised his hand. What if understanding isn't enough? Then we try harder, Zara answered, because the alternative is a war that nobody wins. After the training session, Jake and Zara walked through the city that was slowly becoming a model for human-alien cooperation. There were still problems, still people on both sides who were afraid or angry, but there were also coffee shops where humans and aliens sat together. Research laboratories where both species worked side by side, and schools where children learned about the galaxy beyond their world. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked as they passed a group of kids playing with alien technology that would have been science fiction. A year ago. Regret what? Staying, choosing us over them. Zara stopped walking and turned to face him. I didn't choose you over them. I chose truth over fear, love over hatred, hope over despair. Those aren't human values or alien values, they're universal values. And the combat gear? The thing that started all this is hanging in our bedroom closet, right where it belongs. A reminder of where we came from and proof of how far we've come. Jake smiled. Our bedroom closet. I like the sound of that. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. As they continued their walk, Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here, from suspicious roommates to partners in the most important mission in human history, from a veteran struggling to find his place in the world to a bridge between worlds. The tactical vest that had once represented his past now represented their future. A future where the species could work together, where understanding could triumph over fear, and where love could literally be out of this world. Jake Martinez never thought his life would get weirder than it already was. After spending 4 years in the Marines, coming back to regular life felt like learning to walk all over again. Everything seemed to quiet, to normal, to safe. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. looking for his rifle, only to remember he was in his small apartment in Portland, not a tent in the middle of nowhere. The apartment wasn't much to look at. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that barely fit. His old couch and a TV he'd bought at a garage sale. But it was his space. And after sleeping in barracks for years, having his own place felt like a luxury. The only problem was the rent. Working night security at an office building paid the bills, but just barely. When his landlord, Mr. Chen, knocked on his door that Tuesday morning, Jake figured it was about the rent being 3 days late. Instead, the old man had a different kind of problem. Jake, I need to talk to you about getting a roommate, Mr. Chen said, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I know you like your privacy, but the building needs more income. Rent's going up everywhere, and I can't keep these units at the old prices. Jake's heart sank. He'd been dreading this conversation for months. How much more are we talking about? With a roommate, you pay the same as now. Without one, it goes up by $400 next month. $400 might as well have been $4,000. Jake did the math in his head and came up short every way he looked at it. Okay? But I get to meet whoever it is first. No partiers, no drama, no weird stuff. Mr. Chen nodded. Actually, I already have someone in mind. Very quiet, very clean. Pays on time. Name's Zara. She's different, but in a good way. That should have been Jake's first warning sign. In the military, different usually meant trouble was coming. But he needed the money. And Mr. Chen had never steered him wrong before. 3 days later, Jake was rearranging his stuff to make room for a stranger. He moved his military gear into his bedroom closet, the tactical vest, combat boots, and all the other equipment he couldn't quite bring himself to throw away. Part of him wondered why he kept it all. Maybe it was the only proof he had that his time in the service meant something. The knock on his door came at exactly 6 p.m. Jake opened it to find a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She was tall, maybe 5'7", with pale skin that seemed to almost glow in the hallway light. Her hair was white blonde, pulled back in a perfect ponytail, and her clothes looked expensive but simple. What really caught his attention were her eyes. They were the palest blue he'd ever seen, almost gray. You must be Jake, she said, extending her hand. I'm Zara. Thank you for allowing me to share your space. Her handshake was firm, maybe a little too firm, and her skin felt oddly cool. The way she talked was formal, like she was reading from a script. Most people would have said something like thanks for letting me crash here or hope we get along okay. But Zara spoke like she was giving a presentation. Come on in, Jake said. Stepping aside, I cleared out half the closet and made some room in the kitchen cabinets. Zara walked through the apartment slowly, examining everything with the kind of attention Jake had learned to associate with people who were looking for threats. She spent extra time looking at his bookshelf, running her fingers along the spines of his military history books. You were in the armed forces, she said. It wasn't a question. Marines. Got out about a year ago. Jake waited for the usual follow-up questions. Where did you serve? See any action? Why did you get out? Instead, Zara just nodded and continued her inspection. Her stuff arrived into suitcases and a small bag. That was it. No furniture. No boxes of random junk. No personal items that most people can't live without. Jake had moved plenty of times. In the military, But even then he had more belongings than this. Travel light, huh? He asked, trying to make conversation. I prefer to keep things simple. Zara replied, possessions can become burdens over the next few days. Jake started to notice things about his new roommate. She was clean. That was, for sure. The apartment had never been so spotless. She seemed to clean without making any noise. And she never left a mess anywhere. But it was more than that. It was like she was almost perfect. She never seemed to sleep. Jake worked nights, so he was used to being awake when most people were asleep. But even when he came home at 6 a.m., he'd find Zara sitting by the living room window, staring out at the sky. She'd be in the same position when he woke up in the afternoon. Don't you ever get tired? He asked one day. I rest differently than most people, she said. I find the night sky peaceful. Her eating habits were strange too. Jake never saw her cook anything, and the food he bought for himself never went missing. Sometimes he'd catch her drinking these smoothies that looked like they were made of plants he'd never seen before. When he asked where she got them, she'd say she had them delivered. The really weird part was how electronics acted around her. Jake's old TV had been on the fritz for months, cutting out whenever it felt like it. But after Zara moved in, it worked perfectly. His laptop, which used to take forever to start up, now booted up in seconds. Even his phone battery seemed to last longer. You're good with technology, he mentioned one evening. I have an understanding of how these systems work, she said. Most problems are simple to fix if you know what to look for. Jake had tried to fix his TV a dozen times. He'd watched YouTube videos, read forums, even called a repair guy who'd wanted to charge him more than the TV was worth. But somehow, Zara had made it work without even touching it. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Jake had been working a double shift and came home exhausted. He dumped his security gear on the couch and headed straight for the shower. When he came out, he found Zara in the living room, holding his tactical vest. She was running her fingers along the straps and pockets with the kind of fascination a kid might show for a new toy. But there was something else in her expression, respect, maybe even awe. This is remarkable craftsmanship, she said without looking up. The materials are designed for maximum protection while maintaining mobility. Yeah, it's just work gear, Jake said, feeling uncomfortable. That vest had been with him through some of his worst days overseas. Seeing someone else handle it felt wrong. Work gear. Zara looked up at him with those pale eyes. This is the equipment of a warrior. In my culture, we have great respect for those who protect others. Something in her voice made Jake's skin crawl. Not in a bad way, but in the way that made all his military instincts wake up. The way she'd said and then changed it to in my culture stuck with him. Where are you from, anyway? He asked. Originally. Zara set down the vest carefully, like it was made of glass. Very far from here. Somewhere you wouldn't know. Try me. I've been around. For just a second, her eyes seemed to flash silver in the lamplight. Jake blinked, and they were back to their usual pale blue. It's difficult to explain. Perhaps someday I'll tell you more about my homeland. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Zara had looked at his gear, the way she'd touched it. Most people saw his military equipment and either ignored it or asked uncomfortable questions about what he'd done overseas. But Zara had looked at it like it was something sacred. He was finally starting to drift off when he heard a soft sound from the living room. At first, he thought it might be the TV, but he turned it off hours ago. The sound was more like humming, but not any tune he recognized. Jake got up and crept to his bedroom door. Through the crack, he could see into the living room. Zara was standing by the window again, but this time she wasn't just looking at the sky. She was glowing. It was faint, like moonlight on water, but there was definitely light coming from her skin. The humming sound was coming from her too, and it seemed to match the rhythm of her breathing. As Jake watched, frozen in place, she raised her hand toward the window. For just a moment, he could swear he saw something flash in the night sky, like a star winking back at her. Then she turned around and looked straight at his door. Jake's heart stopped. Even though he was hidden in the shadows, he was sure she could see him. Her glowing skin made her eyes look like silver coins, and when she smiled, he realized that his quiet, mysterious roommate was something far more dangerous than he'd ever imagined. The next morning, Jake woke up wondering if he'd dreamed the whole thing, but when he went to get his tactical vest from the living room, he found it folded perfectly on the couch. Zara was nowhere to be seen, but there was a note on the kitchen counter in her precise handwriting. "Thank you for sharing your warrior's tools with me. I understand now why you carry such burdens. We should talk soon." Jake stared at the note for a long time, his military training telling him to pack up and leave immediately. But another part of him, the part that had been lonely since coming home, wanted to know what she meant. What did she understand about his burdens? And what did she mean by "we should talk soon"? He was about to find out. That some conversations change everything. Jake spent the entire weekend trying to convince himself he'd imagined the whole thing. Maybe he'd been more tired than he thought. Maybe the stress of having a roommate was getting to him. Maybe his mind was playing tricks on him like it sometimes did since coming back from overseas. But Monday morning, he couldn't ignore what happened next. He was getting ready for work when he heard a crash from the kitchen. Jake rushed out to find Zara standing over his broken coffee maker, looking confused and frustrated. But what stopped him cold wasn't the mess. It was what she was doing with her hands. She was holding the broken pieces, and they were fitting back together like puzzle pieces. The plastic was melting and reshaping itself. The wires were reconnecting, and the whole machine was becoming whole again. In 30 seconds, his coffee maker looked brand new. "Zara, what the hell was that?" She looked up at him, and for the first time since she'd moved in, she looked scared. I can explain." "Yeah, you better start explaining, because normal people don't fix things by touching them." Zara set the coffee maker down carefully and took a step back. "Jake, please sit down. This conversation is going to be difficult. I'm fine standing." "Thanks." Jake crossed his arms and waited. His military training had taught him to read people, and everything about Zara's body language screamed danger. But not the kind of danger he was used to. This was something else entirely. "I'm not from here," she said quietly. "No kidding. Where are you from? Canada? Europe? Someplace where they teach magic coffee maker repair?" "No, Jake, I'm not from anywhere on this planet." The words hung in the air between them like a bomb that hadn't exploded yet. Jake stared at her, waiting for the punchline or the smile that would tell him she was joking. It never came. "You're telling me you're an alien?" "Yes, like from outer space." "Yes, and you're here because..." Zara walked over to the window and looked out at the morning sky. "My people sent me here to study humans, to learn about your culture, your technology, your way of life, but most importantly, to understand your military capabilities." That last part hit Jake like a punch to the gut. "You're a spy. I'm a researcher. There's a difference, is there? Because it sounds like you're here to figure out how to fight." U.S. Zara turned around, and Jake saw that her eyes had changed. They were definitely silver now, not the pale blue he'd gotten used to. "Some of my people want to make contact with humans. Others think you're too dangerous. My job is to provide information that will help them decide. And that's why you're so interested in my gear. You're studying our weapons, not just weapons. I'm studying warriors. On my world, soldiers are the most respected members of society. They're protectors, peacekeepers, guardians of everything we hold dear. When I touched your equipment, I could sense something about you, your experiences, your dedication, your..." She paused, looking for the right word. "Your honor." Jake didn't know what to say to that. He'd never thought of himself as honorable. Most days, he felt more like a broken-down veteran who couldn't figure out how to fit into regular life. "Show me," he said. "What?" "Show me what you really look like. If you're really an alien, prove it." Zara hesitated for a moment, then closed her eyes. The change was gradual at first. Her skin began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Then the shimmer spread, and Jake watched as her human appearance melted away like makeup. Washing off, her skin became paler, almost translucent, with a faint glow underneath. Her hair turned completely white, and her eyes became solid silver. She was still beautiful, but in a way that was clearly not human. When she opened her mouth to speak, Jake could see that her teeth were slightly different, sharper, more pointed. "This is who I really am," she said, and her voice had changed too. It was still recognizably hers, but there was something else underneath it, like an echo. Jake sat down heavily on the couch. "Okay, so you're really an alien from another planet, living in my apartment, studying humans, yes? And your people might decide to attack us based on what you tell them. It's more complicated than that. My people are afraid of humans because you're so violent. You fight each other constantly. You build weapons that could destroy your entire world. From the outside, you look like a species that can't be trusted. But you don't think that?" Zara's appearance shifted back to her human form, but her eyes stayed silver. "I thought that when I first arrived, but living here, watching you, learning about your culture, I've started to understand that human violence isn't just about aggression. It's about protection. You fight to defend the people you care about." "How do you know that?" "Because when I touched your combat gear, I didn't just feel the battles you'd fought. I felt why you fought them. I felt your fear when your friends were in danger. I felt your determination to bring everyone home safely. I felt your guilt when you couldn't save them all." Jake's throat tightened. She was talking about things he'd never told anyone, things he tried not to think about even when he was alone. "You can read minds, not exactly, but when I touch objects that are important to someone, I can sense the emotions connected to them. Your gear, it carries a lot of emotional weight. Pain, yes, but also love, loyalty, sacrifice. That's private stuff. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude. But it changed how I see you, how I see humans in general." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people were going about their normal Monday morning routines. None of them had any idea that an alien was living in the apartment building, studying them, reporting back to her people about whether humanity was worth keeping around. "So what happens now?" he asked. "I don't know. My mission was supposed to be simple. Observe, learn, report. But it's gotten complicated." "Complicated how?" "Because I care about you, about humans, about this planet. When I first arrived, you were just subjects to be studied. Now you're more than that." Jake turned to look at her. She was still in her human form, but he could see the silver flickering in her eyes. "What are you going to tell your people?" "I'm not sure yet. The truth, I suppose, that humans are complex, that your capacity for violence comes from your capacity for love, that you're worth protecting, not destroying. And if they don't believe you, then I'll have to make a choice." "What kind of choice?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "Between my people and yours." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying there might be a war?" "I'm saying there might be a decision to make. And when that time comes, I'll need to decide where I stand." They stood in silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Jake spoke up. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. I mean, this whole situation is crazy, but I haven't felt this useful in a long time." "Useful?" "Yeah, since I got out of the military, I've felt like I don't have a purpose anymore. Like all my training and experience don't matter. But if I can help you understand humans better, if I can help prevent some kind of cosmic war, maybe that's worth something." Zara smiled, and for the first time since he met her, it looked completely genuine. "You're exactly the kind of person my people need to understand. You're a warrior, but you fight for peace. You're strong, but you use that strength to protect others. You're what humans can be at their best. I'm just a guy trying to figure out how to pay rent. You're more than that, Jake, and I think, deep down, you know it." As Jake got ready for work that evening, he couldn't stop thinking about what Zara had told him. His quiet roommate was an alien spy. His life was suddenly connected to interplanetary politics. And somehow, his old military gear had become the bridge between two worlds. He was locking up his apartment when he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Across the street, a man in a dark suit was taking pictures of the building. When the man saw Jake looking, he quickly put his camera away and walked off. Jake's military instincts kicked in immediately. Someone was watching them. The question was, were they human or alien, and what did they want? Jake couldn't concentrate on work that night. Every shadow looked like someone watching him. Every car that drove by the office building seemed suspicious. He kept thinking about the man with the camera and what it meant. Were they being watched? By the government? By other aliens? Or was he just being paranoid? When he got home at 6 a.m., he found Zara sitting at the kitchen table with what looked like a small metal device in her hands. It was glowing softly and making quiet beeping sounds. "What's that?" Jake asked, dropping his security gear on the counter. "Communication device. I've been trying to reach my team leader, but the signal keeps cutting out." She looked worried. "Something's wrong." "What kind of wrong?" "My people should have made contact by now. I was supposed to report in 3 days ago, but every time I try to connect, the signal gets blocked." Jake sat down across from her. "Maybe someone's jamming." That's what I'm afraid of." Zara set the device down carefully. "Jake, I need to tell you something else. I'm not the only one of my kind here." "How many others?" "There are supposed to be 5 of us in this city. We were each given different assignments. I was told to study military culture, but the others..." She paused. "Not all of them have the same peaceful intentions I do." "What do you mean?" "2 of them, Kale and Vera, believe humans are too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. They think the only way to protect the galaxy is to stop human expansion before it begins." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Stop it how?" "By convincing our leaders that humans need to be contained or eliminated. And the other 2, Nix is studying your technology, trying to understand how advanced you really are, and Dren. Dren is supposed to be evaluating your potential as allies. So it's like a vote, 3 against 2. Humanity loses. It's more complicated than that. But yes, our reports will influence a decision that affects your entire species." Jake ran his hands through his hair. This was way bigger than he'd imagined. "The guy watching our building yesterday, do you think it was one of them?" "I don't know, but I've been sensing something lately, a presence. Like someone's been monitoring our communications." "Can you tell if it's human or alien?" "No. But Jake, there's something else. Yesterday, when you saw that man taking pictures, I felt something change in the local energy patterns. Someone was scanning the building. Scanning for what? For me. For any of us." Jake stood up and walked to the window. The street looked normal, but he learned not to trust appearances. "So what do we do?" "I need to find the others. If Kale and Vera are planning something, I need to know about it, and I need to warn them that we might be compromised." "How do you find them?" "Each of us has a unique energy signature. I can track them if I get close enough. But Jake, it could be dangerous. If they realize I've told you the truth about what we are, they might see you as a threat." "Let me worry about that. You said your people respect warriors, right? Maybe it's time I acted like one." Over the next few days, Jake found himself training Zara in basic combat techniques. It felt strange teaching an alien how to fight, but she was a quick learner. Her reflexes were faster than any humans, and her strength was impressive. But more importantly, she understood the principles behind the training. It's not about being aggressive, Jake explained as they practiced defensive moves in the apartment. It's about protecting yourself and others. Sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to show that you're ready for one. "On my world, we have a saying," Zara said, blocking his practice strike. "The strongest warrior is the one who never needs to prove their strength." Smart people. Your kind, not all of us, apparently, during one of their training sessions, Zara accidentally touched Jake's dog tags while they were sparring. The moment her fingers made contact with the metal, she gasped and stumbled backward. "What happened?" Jake asked, concerned. I felt." She looked at him with wide eyes. "Jake, I experienced your memories. The battles, the fear, the friends you lost. I felt everything." Jake's chest tightened. "I told you that stuff was private, I know, and I'm sorry. But Jake, you need to understand something. When I felt those memories, I realized how wrong my people's assessment of human warriors really is. You didn't fight because you enjoyed violence. You fought because you had to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's the job. No, it's more than that. You carried the weight of every decision, every loss, every life you couldn't save. That's not the behavior of a violent species. That's the behavior of a species that cares deeply about each other. Tell that to your friends who want to wipe us out. I will. But first, I need to find them. Their chance came sooner than expected. 2 days later, Zara's communication device started working again. But instead of reaching her team leader, she picked up a signal from one of the other aliens in the city. "It's Nix," she said. Listening to the device, she's requesting a meeting. "All of us." "Where?" "The old warehouse district. Tonight at midnight." Jake didn't like it. "That sounds like a trap, maybe. But it's also our best chance to find out what's really going on." "I'm coming with you." "Jake, no. If they see you, they'll know I've compromised the mission. And if something happens to you, I'll never forgive myself. We're in this together now." That night, they made their way to the warehouse district. Jake stayed hidden while Zara approached the meeting point. From his position behind a stack of shipping containers, he could see 4 figures standing in a circle under a street light. Even from a distance, he could tell they weren't human. They all had that same otherworldly quality that Zara had when she wasn't trying to look human. But unlike Zara, these 4 seemed more dangerous. "Zara," one of them called out, "you're late. I had to be careful. I think we're being watched. By humans? I'm not sure." Jake watched as the group talked, wishing he could hear what they were saying. Then he noticed something that made his blood run cold. One of the aliens was holding what looked like a weapon, something that glowed with the same energy as Zara's communication device. He was trying to get a better look when his phone buzzed. A text message from a number he didn't recognize. "Don't move. You're surrounded." Jake's military training kicked in. He scanned the area and spotted them, dark figures positioned on rooftops. And behind other containers, human figures, dressed in black tactical gear. Before he could process what was happening, bright lights flooded the area. A voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is Agent Rodriguez, with the Department of Homeland Security." Nobody moved. The meeting erupted in chaos. The aliens scattered in different directions, moving faster than any human could. Jake saw Zara running toward him, her eyes wide with panic. "Jake, run!" she shouted. But it was too late. Men in black uniforms were already surrounding them, weapons drawn. Jake raised his hands, his mind racing. How had the government found them? How long had they been watching? "Zara Martinez and Jake Martinez," Agent Rodriguez called out. "You're both under arrest for conspiracy and harboring non-human entities." As they were taken into custody, Jake caught Zara's eye. She looked terrified, but not for herself. She was scared for him, for what this meant for both their peoples. "It's going to be okay," he whispered as they put handcuffs on them both. But even as he said it, Jake knew that nothing would ever be okay again. The secret was out, the aliens were scattered, and somewhere in the city, beings with the power to decide humanity's fate were making plans that could change everything. The man with the camera hadn't been the only one watching. The government had been tracking them all along. And now Jake and Zara were caught in the middle of something that was about to get much, much bigger. The interrogation room was exactly what Jake expected. Gray walls, a metal table, and 2 chairs. He'd been sitting there for 6 hours, still in handcuffs, with no food or water. Standard procedure for softening up suspects, but Jake had been trained to handle worse than this. The door opened, and Agent Rodriguez walked in with a thick file folder. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the kind of confidence that came from years of dealing with dangerous people. "Mr. Martinez," she said, sitting across from him, Marine Corps veteran, honorable discharge. Clean record until now. "What happened? I want to see my roommate." "Your roommate isn't human. Did you know that when you started living with her?" Jake kept his face blank. "I want a lawyer. This isn't a regular criminal case, Mr. Martinez. This falls under national security. We can hold you as long as we need to. Then I guess we're going to be here a while." Agent Rodriguez opened the file and spread out several photographs. They showed Jake and Zara together, shopping for groceries, walking to his car. Sitting by the apartment window, the government had been watching them for weeks. "We know she's not human," Rodriguez said. "We have surveillance footage of her. In her true form. We know about the others in the city. What we don't know is why a decorated Marine would cooperate with a potential threat to national security. Maybe because she's not a threat." "How do you know that?" Jake was quiet for a moment. The truth was, he didn't know for certain. But his gut told him that Zara was different from the others. She cared about humans in a way that felt genuine. "She could have hurt me a dozen times," he said finally. "She had opportunities. She never did." "Maybe she was using you? For what? Information? Access? A way to blend in and avoid detection?" Jake shook his head. "You don't understand. She's not like the others." "What others? How many are there?" Jake realized he'd said too much, but it was too late to take it back. "I want to see her." "That's not going to happen." "Then I'm done talking." Agent Rodriguez stared at him for a long moment, then gathered up the photographs. "Mr. Martinez, I'm going to be straight with you. We've been tracking these beings for months. We know they're conducting some kind of intelligence operation. We know they have technology that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. And we know that first contact with an alien species is the most important moment in human history. So what do you want from me? We want to know whose side you're on." Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, Zara was having her own conversation. But unlike Jake, she wasn't handcuffed. She was sitting in a more comfortable room with Dr. Lisa Chen, a scientist who specialized in first contact protocols. "I know this is frightening," Dr. Chen said, "but we're not your enemies. We just want to understand. Where's Jake? He's safe. We're talking to him too. He has nothing to do with this. I'm the one you want, actually. He has everything to do with this. From what we've observed, he's the first human to successfully form a relationship with one of your kind. That makes him incredibly valuable." Zara's eyes flashed silver. "Valuable how?" "As a bridge between our species. As someone who can help us understand each other. And if I refuse to cooperate, then first contact becomes much more difficult and much more dangerous." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Zara, we know about the others. We know some of them have hostile intentions. We need your help to prevent a conflict that could destroy both our peoples." "How do I know I can trust you?" "Because we're talking instead of fighting. Because we brought you here instead of attacking you. Because we're treating you like a person, not a threat." "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Your mission, your people's intentions, the timeline for contact. But most importantly, we want to know if there's a way to make this work." "Make what work?" "Peace, coexistence, a future where both our species can thrive." Back in the interrogation room, Agent Rodriguez returned with a new approach. She brought Jake a cup of coffee and a sandwich. "I've been thinking about what you said." She told him about her being different. "What makes you think that?" Jake took a sip of coffee. "It was terrible, but it was warm. She could have used me and disappeared. Instead, she stayed. She started caring about humans, about me. Or she's a very good actor. You don't fake the kind of emotions I saw in her. When she touched my gear, she felt everything I've been through. The pain, the guilt, the responsibility. It changed her. She can read minds. Not exactly. She can sense emotions connected to objects. When she touched my military equipment, she experienced what I'd experienced. She understood what it meant to be a human warrior." Rodriguez made notes. "And that's important because her people judge other species based on their warriors. They think humans are too violent, too dangerous. But when she felt what I felt, she realized that our violence comes from a desire to protect others, not to hurt them." "What about the others? The ones who want to eliminate humans?" Jake hesitated. By answering, he'd be betraying Zara's trust. But he was also potentially saving millions of lives. "There are two of them, Kale and Vera. They think humans are too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. They want to convince their leaders to stop human expansion. How? By any means necessary." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "And where do your loyalties lie, Mr. Martinez? With protecting innocent people, human or alien, even if it Means going against your own species? Even if it means preventing a war that would destroy both species. Hours later, Jake and Zara were finally allowed to see each other. They met in a conference room with Dr. Chen and Agent Rodriguez present. Are you okay? Jake asked as soon as he saw her. I'm fine. Are you? I've been better. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. We've been having very productive conversations with both of you. We think there might be a way to make this work. What do you mean? Zara asked. We want to propose a joint operation. You help us locate the hostile members of your team, and we help you send a message to your leaders about humanity's true nature. And Jake? Mr. Martinez would be our liaison, someone who understands both military protocol and your culture, someone both sides can trust. Jake looked at Zara, then back at the two women. What's the catch? The catch is that we're running out of time, Agent Rodriguez said. Our intelligence indicates that Kale and Vera are planning to take direct action against human targets. If they succeed, it could trigger a response from your people that would be catastrophic. What kind of direct action? Zara asked. We're not sure, but we've detected energy readings consistent with your technology near several key infrastructure sites, power plants, communication centers, military bases. Zara's face went pale. They're going to make it look like humans are preparing for war. Exactly. And when your leaders see evidence of human aggression, they'll authorize a preemptive strike. How long do we have? Maybe 48 hours. Jake felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. Everything he'd been through, all his training, all his experience. It had been preparing him for this moment, not a battle against an enemy, but a fight to prevent a war. What do you need us to do? We need you to find Kale and Vera, and we need you to stop them. And if we can't, Dr. Chen and Agent Rodriguez exchanged glances. Then we'll have to try to stop them ourselves. And that might be the spark that starts the war we're trying to prevent. As they left the facility, Jake realized that he was no longer just a veteran trying to find his place in the world. He was a soldier again, fighting the most important battle of his life. And this time, the stakes weren't just his squad or his unit. They were the entire human race. Are you ready for this? Zara asked as they got into the government car. That would take them back to the city. I've been ready my whole life, Jake replied. I just didn't know it yet.